So pretty much the webinar today is going to be covering the InRouter600 series. This is a low-cost industrial router solution. These are a newer product line. And we just launched them this year. Earlier in the year came the InRouter611 model, and then also roughly mid-year come the InRouter615 series. Really what we're going to cover today are some of the different features that come with these two different models from the series. Some success stories and different applications, and then we'll cover the part numbers. So as far as our product portfolio goes, we have our higher end, which is the InRouter900, and has been out much longer. We have the newer version of the 901, which is kind of an embedded module, more for design, so that way you can embed it on a board. The series we'll cover today, the InRouter600 series, is that low-cost industrial router, mostly for connectivity, where you need reliability, a real stable connection, and a good life cycle. And then the industrial gateway, which is specifically orientated around controllers and different industrial automation. So the InRouter600 series is comprised of two different models. The InRouter611, it's low cost. You get the 4 and 3G. It just comes with one Ethernet, but you still have different VPN security features and Wi-Fi. It's very small, compact. You can fit it just about anywhere. And then we have the 615 series, which is a more industrial version. And it's got a few extra features to it as far as the interface goes and spec. And it's a little more built toward our more traditional industrial customers, but maybe more or less for OEMs and people who need that lower cost without as many features. So the InRouter611, the key components to this is it's compact and it's low cost. You still have the flexibility of 3G or 4G, like in the US where 3G is kind of going away. You have, high security and reliability. This is features that we consider standard in all of our products. It's still industrial in spec. You get the IP30 with a wide temperature range. This makes it a really good fit for unattended spaces. And then easy remote management. So as far as compact design goes, it's a very small product. Just a little more detail. It's got one Ethernet and one serial. Now I will note that the standard serial that comes with it is RS-232. If you need 485 or DB9, you need to let us know so we can order a specific part number for that. Metal enclosure, your IP30 protection, EMC level 2, there's no moving parts. As I said before, if you're going for more of something with a PLC companion, the 615 is a little better because it's got an equal EMC rating. And then the wide temperature range and wide voltage. As far as being real compact and easy to fit, it's 100 by 100 by 23 millimeters, so a very, very small unit. The traditional mounting features for it is it comes with two mounting ears for wall mounting and panel mounting, but it doesn't come with a DIN rail. So this is really the way to mount it, or if it's being used in some type of consignment or some type of area where it can just be set on a counter or sitting in a location where you wouldn't have to mount it, that's acceptable too. Reliable high-speed communications. This product does have capability for LTE with a fallback for 3G. So if you just need 3G, you can get a lower cost. In the US, we typically recommend LTE because 3G is going away. You have multiple Wi-Fi modes. You can set it up as an AP, a client, and then there is some bridge capabilities in there. It also includes a hardware watchdog, and for those of you who are not too familiar with that, it's kind of like a core programs, your firmware. So if it has an issue in that type of area, it can recover on its own. And then it has multi-layer link detection. So if you wanted to use Wi-Fi, for example, as your primary internet access, let's say you're in a gas station. So you use Wi-Fi as your primary, and then as a failover for, say, your credit card reader, you could have the cellular, because if your credit card reader goes down, then you're not going to be making any money for that time your network's down. So it can automatically do that for you. It also has a very nice feature, VRRP, that's Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol. And traditionally how it's used with the 611 is it'll be used as like a failover, where you can have it connected to, say, a Cisco router or a Systech or something, maybe in a service station or in some type of retail space. And you're using your primary router, with Ethernet, but then you can also use the IR611 as backup. And it can also do some load balancing for it, but that's not the true intent, at least with the 611 series. But having this extra reliability, this kind of backup link, and the ability to, if you do have a little more traffic, to load balance to some degree, it's a very useful feature, because these product lines are intended for areas where you need to keep that communication up. And standard with all of our products, we do support VPN and data security. I'll let you read through them. I'm not going to read them all to you, but we support all the standard VPN and tunneling protocols. We also support, different types of authentication and certificate validation. So, by standard, it comes with a firewall to protect different features, and it does have stateless packet inspection. So, and you can configure your access control list to kind of mitigate what you want to allow if you want to do any remote access on yourself. And of course, multi-layer user authorization. So that way you can pick out, who can access the device and then what level of access they're granted. And this is really good for that remote network management, because if you do have distributed geographical locations, this is the type of device that your network team is really going to appreciate. Very easy to deploy. It supports APN auto negotiation, so you can just drop your SIM card in it and it'll negotiate with the SIM to find out what the APN, so you don't have to go and Google an APN for a certain carrier and then go in and do that extra human interaction of configuring it for the APN connection. We can auto negotiate that for you. It still has command line interface if that's what your network team or your integrators prefer, but it's also got a very user-friendly web configuration. Very simple. It's easy to locate what you need to change or configure. And of course, like with all of our products, the InHand device manager is supported, so that way you can do mass batch configuration and central network management. So if your customer wants to deploy 1,000 of these, they can go in and create a batch configuration, and then from that they can upgrade all the routers at once. So the InRouter615 series, we'll move on to this. And like I said, it's a very similar product line, except for it's got just a few more features, some more interface, and it's a little more industrial. So as far as the industrial rugged design, you get 5 Ethernet ports now with 1 serial port. You can set it up as, you can have a LAN. So if you want to plug in to that internet access instead of having, some type of Cisco or something else, you can do that, and you can set that up as your primary. You also can connect, as I said, multiple devices because you have additional Ethernet ports. It does have an EMC level 3 rating, which is the same as most standard PLCs. So like I said, it makes it a little better fit if you want to actually go with that industrial automation side. Same wide operating temperature, has a little wider voltage range. And then this one does come with a DIN rail mounting, and that's the standard. So if you need some type of wall or hanger mounting, you just got to let us know and we'll annotate that. In addition, it also has a dual mode serial terminal block. So you have both RS-232 and 485 standard with it. And then you can also connect it with an industrial power supply by just wiring it in. Whereas the 611 has its own plug-in. And these are some of the options for mounting. Like I said, it does come with a DIN rail. But you can still do the wall mounting cabinet, and then you can kind of orientate it however fits best within your panel or your product. So stable and reliable. Like I said, it's similar features within the 611. There's a lot of different features built into the 600 series. It's all orientated around having stuff running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So having the ability to do different types of link recovery, VPN recovery, and then your hardware watchdog to make sure that there's no firmware issue that will take you offline. So this one, what can be different as far as with the link backup, it does support Vrrp, like the 611, but because you have the additional Ethernet and you have a WAN interface, that means that instead of using 2 routers, you can do it all here, which is great for ATM and gaming, retail, kiosk. So that way you can have that primary where I'm getting my internet from an ISP, but I have the cellular to fail over to. So that way my credit card reader, my gaming machine, whatever I'm using, my kiosk doesn't go down, so I don't lose money. And you can do it also with Wi-Fi. So you can set up multiple different failover links. And as I mentioned before, with VPN and data security, it's all the same. It's very standard because security is one of our cornerstones, so not really any change there. And of course, the easy deployment management. It's got the similar features to IR611. The main difference is because this is orientated also for industrial customers, for OEMs, people who need that lower cost, just connectivity. We did include access to our device touch cloud, which is kind of a VPN made easy for remote programming. So if you are an industrial customer or you have industrial customers, and they need to remotely access their PLC, but they don't want to set up all the network infrastructure, to facilitate VPN connections and servers, then they can just simply log into the cloud, select the router, click on, and then they'll have a VPN connection. And then they can just access their programming software like SoMachine or RX Logic and just program it from there. So a little extra feature. So now we'll move on to success stories and applications. Really, this is what I would highlight a little more in our introduction of this product line, because you can look up a spec sheet and see all the features there. But really, this is kind of an expansion on InHand networks as far as what market segments we're going after and which ones we've been seeing success in to kind of direct us in different areas. So retail, unattended self-service, ATM and POS, digital signage, vending and kiosks. The key component behind the retail side is unattended. So places where you have unattended devices, so if there is a failure or if something goes down, there's no one immediately there that can support it, that can get it back up and running. You're going to have to pay a service fee to someone to go out and then diagnose the machine and repair the machine and then come back. So it's kind of orientated around that. So don't think, so much is focused on, providing someone broadband or like a cellular connection just for internet. This is for unattended space. Also smart city. I know probably a lot of you have heard that there's a lot of growth in smart city. They're starting to connect a lot of different, products and devices inside the cities, such as smart lighting. I know that's becoming a very popular, common thing with a lot of traction. Transportation is getting more, especially, around emergency responders, synchronizing different employees working for the utilities, for the grid, video surveillance, the CC cameras. I'm sure you've all had to deal with those very painful, you run a red light or you're speeding a little bit and the camera takes a picture and you get a ticket in the mail, right? Well, with all that, you need your connectivity, and they want stuff that has a long life cycle, something that might be in a panel outside. So it's not really, that consumer product that you want to use. You want to go more industrial and rugged. And then EV charging stations has been a really big thing upcoming with the movement for people to go green on energy. The electric cars, there's been a lot of EV charging stations deployed globally, and they need communication so that way they can determine, the battery status, how it's charging, how it's discharging. There's a lot of need for communication in that. And of course, industrial, we're seeing more stuff in smart metering, water and utilities has always been a big thing, and then different pipeline systems. Once again, it's a lot of focus on, if you think IR600 series, you want to think unattended. So from the success stories that we've had personally, first I'll talk about Sydney Water. So Sydney Water is a utility out of Australia. They've been using Itron metering system, which comprises of, a very, very large number of meters, and then they will feed over 400 megahertz radio into an Itron Everblue collector. So that way they can kind of consolidate them. and then those will then feed back to the main Everblue access point. And we were fortunate enough to get the space inside that panel where we provide the backhaul. So we're providing that connectivity. It's in an unintended area, and they need to move that data back. So pretty much you're having one InRouter600 series, and in truth, it's moving the data for 1,200 meters back to the database. So like I said, in the metering area, the IR600 series is a very popular thing. Also, our good partner, Schneider Electric, we've been a CAT partner for a while. We've been working with them on power metering. In essence, they're moving the stuff back to their monitoring system, so they'll have their meters, and then they'll have some type of data logger or something to consolidate that data, similar to a last application, and then they need a backhaul. And they typically like to choose 4G or 3G, depending on location, because then you're not dependent upon the actual internet access and the network within the location. So if you're doing power monitoring or metering, for more efficiency in a factory, actually getting in on their network, it adds a lot more complexity to it. Whereas if they have their own network space, they can push it out over cellular, collect that data, monitor it, build their statistics, and actually provide how much power savings and energy savings that they're providing. And I know you've heard me mention a lot about service stations, because it's a very good example of, a network that's geographically spaced out in many different locations. So, having a product with that remote management access, so that way you can do all your configurations without having to send teams over a very large regional area, that provides a lot of benefit. And then in this instance, they chose cellular as their primary connectivity because, they were using their card readers and their POS controller and system, for receiving payment and then pushing it back to their service center. So, that's something that when if their network goes down, then, they're gonna have a loss in revenue, and it's gonna stop their business. So, and like I said, don't focus just on service stations. This can be used within different types of retail stores. It can be used anywhere, whether it's unattended or in some cases attended, where they have to have something that's rugged and reliable. And a lot of them prefer this extended life cycle, because if you buy a commercial product, you could get your backhaul. Bosch could buy some type of cellular router off the shelf without any real spec to it. But the difference is they don't have that reliability. It'll fail more frequently, and then they'll have to replace the product more often. Whereas if they go with the industrial, even if it's not an industrial environment, you're going to see a much longer life cycle. So you get a lot of benefits to that. In the retail space, we actually worked with, I believe it was a company called Checkpoint out of the UK, and they were providing the security cams and the network infrastructure for H&M, kind of a retail shopping center for different types of clothing. And we were able to provide the connectivity, not just for the cameras if they need to pull video feed or pull it back somewhere, but also they were moving toward big data, with this whole IoT growth and movement and revolution. So they added cameras to do people counting also. So that way they can track, how many people come in the store on an average Tuesday, or during a seasonal holiday, or during a promotion. So we would provide that 4G LTE connection back, and then they didn't have to deal with the local network within the mall or within the store. So it was definitely a very interesting application. And then as you move more toward kiosk and vending machines, we worked with Costa Coffee to provide monitoring and data for their coffee machines. And coffee machines, are a very interesting breed inside the vending industry, because rather than just having standard, cans of soda or snacks, you actually have to track your coffee beans, the water levels. Are you getting water? Do you have water storage? Milk and creamer. So there's a lot more, things that have to be managed and mixed. You're going to have some type of controller in there to make sure it's all being done correctly. So this is, this was actually a really good fit for them, because they could hook up a 615 and have, multiple kiosk and coffee stations all networked locally in to the same device. But then with the controllers in them, they also have the ability for remote access if they need it. So other good, interesting markets. I mean, I've talked kiosk, I've talked unattended, till I'm blue in the face, but wireless ATM. So the ATM industry, they're moving away from your typical telephone connectivity. A lot of the places ATMs are in, they can't just hook up over Wi-Fi. They can't just plug in with an Ethernet. Having that wireless ability to drop an ATM wherever you'd like, or some type of point of sales controller, it's become a huge thing. The majority of products you're going to see on the market, they're going to have some type of cellular connectivity. I mean, for us, it's been very beneficial. Worldwide, we've provided more than 30,000 installations for these ATMs and point of sale controllers. We provide that secure VPN for them to move the transactional data, having that auto recovery. That's a key component, that redundancy, because, like I said previously, if your ATM doesn't have a network connection, then it's doing no business. You will make no money from that machine. And then having the ability to do remote diagnostic, data flow monitoring, because their margins are pretty thin. So knowing when their data is increasing or going up, when there's an issue, being able to send a technician to that location, knowing exactly where the problem lies, it's very important to the ATM community. And then having fault monitoring alarms and remote reboot, which we'll be bringing into our playbook soon. Those are all features that the ATM industry really loves and likes. Next, I mentioned before the EV charging stations. When I said these things are really booming and starting to grow, I mean, from us, we've already deployed, connectivity to over 40,000 charging stations in 247 cities. And that number is just going to continue to grow. As more, electric cars come out on the market, more products, that need this, it's such a key component to have your EV charger connected and to have a stable connection, because you're dealing with power and energy. And a lot of them that are out on the market actually have solar panels on them. I know some of our sales guys can attest to that, so now not only do they need to monitor the batteries that they're using to charge everything with, but now they got to track, how much energy has been taken in from the solar panel. There's a lot more components to the charge and discharge rate. So, having that connectivity back to their control center and being able to, remotely manage that many connections, for a network, it's a must-have. And then we'll move on a little bit to applications. Now we kind of touched some of our customer base and what we've already done. So kind of what this expands into, another heavily growing market globally, is the bike sharing service industry. I mean, you see a lot of stuff, in China, Asia, Europe. You see them here in the US in the major cities. They'll have a kiosk, which is unattended, so they need that connectivity. Plus they have a card reader, or they have some type of app or system where they need that device communicating. It has to be part of the Internet of Things. So, being able to provide an IR615, we can connect multiple devices. We can provide that remote access, and it's going to be up and running, even though it's in an outdoor location. So you don't have to worry about the temperature range or any type of EMC issues. And I mean, the bike self-service industry is growing massively, not just from the consumers that are kind of latching onto it, but also the investment world is pumping millions and millions and millions of dollars into this. So I guarantee you this will continue to grow and become a very, very large industry. Another thing which I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen out there is self-pickup and drop-off lockers. I know I've been told about them internationally over the last few years for quite a while. You have a big metropolitan area. People are living inside, high-rise apartment complexes. So delivering mail and packages was always kind of a pain. So that kind of brought this into play in the market. But I've even seen them here in the US. I know Amazon's made a big push with them, so you can just stop by at a Safeway, a grocery store, some type of location, and it's unattended. So they need to track, what's been picked up, what hasn't been picked up, what's in what box. So that's why the 615 is a really good fit for this with, multiple interfaces. And once again, this whole thing depends on connectivity, because if, Amazon brings and puts a package inside one of their lockers and it loses connectivity, then how does it know when it's picked up? How does it know, who's the right person? Was that the right code? So they heavily rely on that connectivity. And without it, this type of innovation would die. So another really interesting one that some of my colleagues had told me about was there's actually been a growth in unmanned convenience stores. And these are different than like micro markets you might see inside your office building or at the airport, where in a real controlled environment where you can just have your own scanner, you go up and you get your candy and you scan the barcode and then you make your payment and leave the little corner. This is a full convenience store. You actually have to swipe your credit card to gain access. And then once you're in, you just collect your products and walk out. It actually has the technology set up in it to detect what was taken off the shelf and more or less out the door. So you have a lot of different, IT products that work in here, and they all rely on that connectivity. And it's also movable. So you can drop it in one region for a few months, and if it's not doing so well, you can literally box this thing up on a truck and take it somewhere else. So you're going to need that asset management and tracking. So, and of course, you do have your unattended payment built into it. So with that, you're going to have a VPN for transport layer security, and you're going to need your network connectivity to reach out to that payment processor. Now, you probably haven't seen any of these in the US, but there's been a lot of money pumped into them, and you'll see them outside the US. So once again, another good example of, having a connectivity for an unattended device that needs high reliability and high redundancy. So now we'll move on to POS for networking and auto care and washing stations. This is an application we've done where, you might have your gas station, and on the inside, maybe they have an IR611 for their cellular connectivity, or 615 providing the actual, credit card reader inside, but your car wash isn't necessarily very, very close to, your actual convenience store or to your gas station. A lot of times they'll be set out farther away, or maybe there's just a car wash by itself. And for these, you need your connectivity. And we've done it with the 615 series also. We provided a 615 with just Wi-Fi as an actual Wi-Fi extender. So you could have one 615 inside the gas station working your POS and your inventory management systems for connectivity. And then you have another one that's a lower cost without cellular working the POS system for the car wash. And then they'll communicate over Wi-Fi, so that way you only need one cellular device and one cellular connection. And they've used this in other instances, such as laundromats, where you have a lot of different laundry machines and they want to have credit card payment for them. So they'll use, Wi-Fi devices. And then when it gets outside the range, then they'll also use, maybe on another floor, they'll use that Wi-Fi extender, with the 615. And especially with the car washes, this is an outdoor application. So you need something more than just a traditional commercial product. And also, as I mentioned before, smart lighting. I think most of the major metropolitan cities, they're all going toward, connected lights. They're really investing a lot of money in the smart cities and smart infrastructure. So we've used the IR611 to connect different light controllers to the management system. So that way, when they want to dim them, lower them, change the lighting, and it have that reduced energy and repair costs, because they're actually managing them all remotely. And with this instance, having that remote management tool, that's what they really love about the 611 in this instance, because they can buy a lower end priced product, but it's still industrial and spec for an outdoor application. And, there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lights within a city. So being able to manage all those different network connections, it's a godsend. So now we'll move into the part number, since I've kind of touched on the different applications, the different market spaces. You can really use this product line, and it can be very useful to promote in or very appreciated by the end user. So for part numbers, the IR611S these are the standard features. It's kind of just a recap since we went through the features earlier. Your RS-232-45, main focus is digital signage, retail, smart city, and then the more industrialized version, the 615. And the only main takeaway as far as, in software features and cloud capabilities is I will reintegrate that if you want to have that easy VPN programming, then the 615 is the model to go with. So for part numbers with the 611, anything that has an FS in it is going to be LTE. So if it's an FS18, an FS28, an FS08, that all indicates it's an LTE model. And then the 18 indicates that it's with AT&T, T-Mobile, and then Verizon, of course, they have to have their own special thing, so they get the FS28. If you need 485 specified on the 611, then you're going to want to make sure that that's indicated. Otherwise, as I said before, it comes standard with 232. And then if you need Wi-Fi, then you're going to want to have WLAN. And other part numbers, if you're looking outside the U.S. or a place where 3G is going to be allowed, existing much longer, it would be a PS08. And then for the 615, we have a few different part numbers. As I mentioned before, it didn't really change with the FS18 and 28. Still LTE, Verizon, and then AT&T and T-Mobile. And then WLAN is also an indicator that you want Wi-Fi on that model. And since both of these, since the IR615 standard comes with 232 and 485, you don't have to specify that because it's already included. So at this point, I'll open it up for Q&A. So any questions you guys have, feel free to go to the Q&A tab and just kind of drop them down for us. Already got a few questions here. So I'll get my colleague here with me. So let's start with, do you have any industrial Canada certifications? So Mr. Mullins, if you would go into a little more detail on that, is there a specific certification you're looking for, or just in general, what Canadian certifications do we have?
I think here is talking about the IC certification. And the answer is yes, we are going to have an IC certification.
So my boss is telling me that if your question was oriented around will we have IC, we will have that certification. It's already a work in process. If there's any other certifications you got a question about, yeah, do you have ICC? So yeah, as I mentioned, that's already in process. So now we'll move on to, do you currently have any Canadian carrier certifications? Yeah, to my knowledge, we do have some carrier certifications. I know we have been working with Rogers. I think in a few instances, we worked with TELUS, we worked with Bell. So we'll move on to the next one. Can you elaborate on your gateway management capabilities? This is by Rajan. What happens if someone spills a cup of coffee on your gateway? Can you automatically restore the configurations in the gateway so all the endpoints pair up just like they were connected to in the previous unit? So if you do have, a product destroyed from water or some type of surge or damage, you can replace that gateway and just take the config file from the management tool and upload it to it. Or if you had 2 or 3, it's the same process. You just make your file and then load it as a batch, and then you could immediately restore all the configurations to your new gateway. Okay, can I share the slides? Gabriel, I'd be more than happy to. And also this webinar will be, you can re-watch or review any of it, show it to your customers on YouTube. So we will be uploading afterwards. So yeah, we'll make sure that we send you the slides. So Eric Olson, Up to what level of IP rating can you achieve? Is IP65 and higher possible? Also, are you open to other air interfaces replacing the Wi-Fi with a different radio?
For IP, we don't have higher IP.
Yeah, for the IP, we currently IP30 is what we go up to. The only product line that we carry that has an IP60 plus rating is our IWS for overhead line monitoring. But for our cellular routers, we don't have any IP65 or higher. So we never really got into waterproof for that extended. Typically, if we have a customer that needs to meet that requirement outside of, like certain types of, more IoT orientated, distributed, typically they'll go with an IP65 panel or they'll go with a higher rated panel. I have seen customers who will be working with class 1 div 2, an environment where you have to deal with explosive materials, and rather than getting all class 1 div 2 products, they'll get a class 1 div 2 panel and then install it in that, and then that will pass the, the bidding and the project requirements. So now we'll move down to Donnie.
No, there's another question which is related to
excuse me, I was replacing Wi-Fi in different radios. I apologize, Eric. So currently with that, from what I've seen, we haven't really done much of that. No. There hasn't been any push inside the company to move an ag radio.
We're working on 900 for the new, I assume that the question is related to the new radio technology like LoRa or low power WAN. The way that that kind of new features will be considered in for the 900 product line, not for the 600.
Okay. So from what I'm being told, we're not really looking into radio, but for a lot of the new, narrow band, low frequency, LoRa, a lot of these different, features for that local communication outside of just Wi-Fi, we are looking into adding those options currently, but it won't be on the IR600 series because this is our, low end, base functionality, and that's how you get the low cost. But the 900 series, we are delving into that. So now I'll move on to Donnie. What are the uses of the serial port? Well, with industrial customers, they're sad to say there are still a lot of customers out there that use legacy PLCs and products where they need, RS-232 or 485 for Modbus. So, that's a pretty typical customer usage in our experience. Like I said, there's been a big push from the industrial automation world to move, everything to Modbus TCP and to stick with Ethernet, but there are still a lot of people who are, they're either converting over or they're still waiting to make a conversion to not using serial. Now we'll move on to Joe. How many users on the Wi-Fi?
20 averaging.
The average is around 20. And ICC correct, I got that. So now we'll go down to Siri. Does this series allow for multiple user connections at the same time like the IR900 series? I believe I talked with my engineer the other day about that. I believe that feature is, I know the 611, it's not supported. I can check on the 615. Do you know, sir?
What does it mean by multiple users?
So when he says multiple users connecting, it means like I can have the IR900 and you could log on to Device Touch as one of the users with your account, and you could make a remote connection to the 900. And then I could also be someone who has something to do with, maybe you're the automation engineer and I'm the network engineer, then I can log on to Device Touch, that you can have two users logging in. I know that's not supported in the 611 series, but I'd have to double check with Zameen.
Yeah, we need to double check. It seems that it's not available for 600.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll double check with Zameen on that for you, Siri. But as of right now, we'll say a maybe on the 615 and a definite no on the 611. Okay, from Joe, can you expand on how the serial connects on the 615 as I don't see the serial port? So the difference on the 615 is it's more of an industrial nature. If you look at the top of the 615 series, you'll see that it has a terminal block, and that's where you'll wire in your industrial power for DC, and also you can wire it in there to have 232 or 485. Let's pull up a picture. We'll scroll up here. So it would be right on the top. Yeah, if you look right below the two Wi-Fi antenna connectors, you'll see the one RS-232 and 485 dual. So as you can see, you have your different connectors that you would wire that into. The CPU specs in 611 and 615 and 900 series, can customers deploy applications on the platform securely? Like I said, I can get that information for you if you like, Shiv, but I don't currently have the makes and models and the specs of each CPU. I do know that the IR900 series has a more powerful CPU because it has a lot more software features. I mean, just to run the different Python applications for its open API requires a more powerful one. And then, can customers deploy applications on the platform securely? Would you care to expand on that a little bit? For what, when you say, deploy applications securely?
I'm sorry, what this question? Oh, okay. I assume that if it's talking about the programmability, the answer is no. Only 900 has the programmability. If related to the security, and 600 also have high level of data security, like VPN, authentication, I mean, all those security features.
Well, I guess until you expand on that, I mean, really all we'd have to say is, you can't add, if you're talking about software applications running on the 611, adding additional ones, that feature is not supported. The 900 series, you can do that. But in essence, it's the 600 series, there's no ability to add additional firmware without some type of custom project. And then that would have to be reviewed. As far as, like I said, standard features, you can do AAA authentication if you want to use a tax or radius server in the back end to do verification. If you want to do certificate validation, that's fine too. It'll support that. If you want to use different VPN features for your transmission layer security, as far as for whatever application you're using with your end device, we can support all of those. Whether it's IPsec, OpenVPN, GRE, or if you want to go to point-to-point or layer 2 tunneling protocol, those are all included and supported. And just as a note, I guess for our future webinar coming up, we will be providing a hosted VPN network space, and all these devices are supported for that. So if you wanted to just have a VPN and just receive your device, and InHand will manage all of the actual maintenance, configuration and setup of the VPN, these would all be supported for that. So you wouldn't have to worry about any errors or any issues in, maintaining, the integrity of your VPN servers and clients. And of course, it's got different firewall features. Most of the standard stuff, distributed, denial of service attack, prevention, it also has stateful packet filtering. You can set up your access control list to make it, as tight as you want. So we'll follow up with that in a minute. Shiv, I have a doc container, application level isolation, have multiple third-party apps.
I don't understand very well this question.
For this application, when you say you have multiple third-party apps, are these running on some type of controller or some type of PC that's connected to the router? Oh, on the 900 series.
Oh, okay. No, we cannot run multiple environments. It's only one single environment for Python.
Yeah, so currently with what we have set up, you can't run multiple third-party apps. What we support is an open API for Python. So you can script it to support some other feature or application, but I don't believe that you would have the capabilities to script something that would support 3 applications. So let me scroll up here and grab some of the other questions. Do you know if the chip is Intel-based or someone else?
ARM-based.
ARM-based. Does the Wi-Fi have a landing/welcome page that can be customized from Joe?
No, not in the router products, but we do have a very sophisticated, fully manageable local website in another product line. It's called InPortal. And InPortal is designed to be the Wi-Fi content server for local content server.
It's a lot more powerful too. Yeah, you can have, what is it, 160 or 170 connections to it?
No, 30 to 50 high resolution video streaming.
I was talking about for the internet connectivity.
For the internet, right.
Yeah. So that would probably be something fitting more along the lines of what you're looking for. Because like I said, really the 600 series is more orientated around, having the capability for unattended and just providing that stable, cheap, reliable network. Why are there 2 antenna connectors? You have a primary and then you have an auxiliary. So you can have multiple antennas to get a little better coverage, or if you want to put one high gain antenna and have a standard antenna, it's just to add more flexibility. And if you're looking for that true redundancy, you can put 2 antennas. So if one fails, you still have a secondary to fall back on.
Right. So we support dual antenna for both Wi-Fi and cellular.
Do any of your models have Gigabyte Ethernet?
No. Not on the router product.
Not on the router products.
Not yet. Let's see.
If you need a Gigabyte router, we do have a very low cost managed and unmanaged that you can do. So if you wanted to do an IR611 and then low cost, I think it's ISE 5005D dash, I think it's 8T-24, then you could have your Gigabyte Ethernet. But on a router, we currently don't have that. Do you have documentation/images on software management? Can we obtain a test demo account to show our demos on the service? Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. Like I said, you can actually go and create it. You can create your own account. There's no requirement or special access to it. It's G as in golf, g.inhandnetworks.com. And if you go to that page, it'll pull up. Let's see if I can just open up a browser really quick. I'll make sure that the Zoom lets me share it. Share screen. So you just go to g.inhandnetworks.com, and then from here you can click on sign up, and you can just put in an email and then drop a password and then enter the CAPTCHA, and it'll sign you right up. And then from there you can add in your InHand router products, and we can provide you with the demo that already has products and devices up and running if you like. All right. Well, are there any more questions, or would you like us to expand on anything? Let's see here. What's the correct Orbing info for the IR615 series? You guys mentioned 900 series like codes with FS18 and 28, but as per the 615 spec PDF, it's different like the IR615 S-L5 codes. So really, if you're ordering to us, just send in the FS1828 model, and then, we break it apart. It's a thing within manufacturing, if I do recall, because of the global parts. So,
yeah. So we are going to actually going back. We are going to change back to the model number definition, which a lot of our customers already get used to. So FX18, FX28 will still be the right ones for 600 series.
So that'll be standard, and the documentation will be updated on the website, so it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Warranty.
3 years.
So if I do recall, yeah, it's a 3-year warranty on the 611 and the 615. That's standard. If you need an extended warranty or you want one, just contact your local sales rep, Thad, Ed, or myself, and we'd be more than happy to see, what kind of options, depending on where it's at. Like if you're going to put an IR615 or an IR611, an industrial plant, then obviously there's a lot more risk to that. But if it's just going to be sitting under the counter at a gas station, well, it's a highly ruggedized product. So what's the turnaround time for repairing a device under warranty? So traditionally with our model, and sir, you can correct me if I'm mistaken, it's whatever you need. If you're not in a hurry and you want to wait for us to try to repair the unit, that's an option. But if you need a quick replacement, as soon as we get the product, we can ship a new one out, and then we'll just repair the RMA and keep it here in-house, and you'll get a new unit. Or, if it's a big enough rush, potentially we could send you one before you even ship it out. So we're very flexible on that, because we do understand that our products are being used in an environment where downtime is, everyone's worst enemy. All right, any more questions? All right, on that, I'm going to close and end the webinar. I'd like to thank you guys for attending this one. Oh, another question? Thank you. Thank you too, Joe. And just as kind of a note before everyone leaves, we do try to do a webinar at the last Wednesday of every month. And the goal right now is, if everything's ready, we will be doing a webinar on the hosted VPN network solution. Like I said, it's going to be great, because at that point you just order the unit, pay a little bit extra cost for the configuration, and then you can have your own VPN network set up without having to worry about maintaining either a physical server or a cloud server, doing the setup on the devices. You just get it and don't worry about the back end. InHand will maintain and keep all of that up for you. So once again, I hope you guys join us for the next webinar, and have a great day.
Thank you, guys.